Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Whalen. I'm the Director of Business Strategy and Portfolio Management for the Office of Publishing at AAAS and for the Science family of journals. What that means is I oversee the publishing strategic framework, the related matrix of projects, and also a few of the working groups. A quick overview of the Science family of journals. We have our flagship Science, which is online and also in print. We have our open access journal, Science Advances, and then we continue with Science Immunology, Science Robotics, Science Signaling, and Science Translational Medicine. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the whys and hows of our working group and our metadata experience, as well as our workflows and also existing industry standards that we're currently looking at. So the metadata working group started when we began course compliance and also looking into FUNREF and ORCID compliance, as well as access control projects. And also we are building a new content distribution engine, so we wanted to review our current metadata and figure out if we needed any additional new data, metadata, et cetera. So those were the main drivers. We've had several conversations about metadata in each of these project meetings, and we decided that it was time to start a metadata working group. So some of the benefits of metadata that we discussed when trying to figure out if we should do the working group, it became a very long list. We met thinking we would have 4 or 5 benefits listed for why we should do it, and we ended up with a list of about 21. So these are just a few. There's the basic, it's the DNA of an article from submission through publication. If you implement taxonomy terms into your metadata, then that will greatly improve ad serving and content feeds and could expand product potential. It also leads to improved SEO, so much so that we started an SEO subgroup led by our product development manager, Hannah Heckner. So we're working side by side with her on SEO improvements as well. It also will help enable open access pilots. It'll include better flexibility with access control as well. And then there's the basic easier implementation of initiatives and services across all of our journals. So that just makes everything a little bit easier. So we outlined the goals for our metadata group, which is to analyze our current state of metadata, standardize metadata across our journals as much as possible, create as rich metadata as early as possible, and then also ensure compliance with emerging industry metadata standards. So a quick overview of our metadata history. In 2014, our IT department built what is our current content tracking system called CTS. So that was 2014, and in that system we added typical article metadata, volume, issue, figures, just the standard basic metadata for articles. We added some new author metadata, which included full contact information, ORCID IDs, and Scopus. And then we also started to add person metadata, which basically means AAAS member IDs, social media sites, which can include LinkedIn, URLs, Twitter handles, lab websites. And then also we implemented ORCID IDs. And in 2015, we added taxonomy terms, field codes, and similar articles for greater discovery of our content. In 2016, we started adding funder, grant number, and grant recipient information, as well as linking funder information back to individual articles, which makes Science an outlier in that sense that we're closing the loop on the funding metadata. And also in 2016, we did JET conversion, which also enabled greater license and reuse terms metadata. 2017, we did cross-check score, article transfer information between our journals, and additional grant recipient information. And then earlier this year, we started adding additional person metadata, which includes gender, birth year, race, ethnicity, highest level of education, degree information, which is not required and stays within our content management system. And then we also began adding credit metadata, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a later slide. A little bit about our final XML metadata workflow. I'll just take you through this quickly. We import metadata into the manuscript file, and then our copy editors use ORCID Integration Suite for ORCID authentication, and then we also include and confirm credit author contributions. We confirm and include funder information. We strip out the demographic metadata, which is most of our person metadata that I discussed, and then we export the file for final XML creation. And then once the information turns into a final XML file, we downstream to several services, which I show here in this chart. Final XML typically goes to Crossref, which then feeds it to ORCID, FundRef, and Chorus. It's also fed to PubMed for our family of journals, and then to PMC for our open access journal Science Advances. And then the files are also sent to all of our abstract and indexing services, which the list is a little too long for a slide. So some of the emerging industry standards that we're looking at right now include, it's not limited to, we're still looking at what's out there, but these are the top ones that we're considering, is FAIR, which stands for Findable, Accessible, Interoperable, and Reusable. It's a Force 11 industry standard. PRISM, which is Publishing Requirements for Industry Standard Metadata, and it's basically metadata across multimedia. And then I mentioned earlier is credit, which is contributor roles taxonomy, and this kind of redefines what authorship means and can attribute roles from anywhere from acquisition to funding. And then we're also looking at IPTC, which is metadata standards for photos. And then finally, Howard's going to discuss this further in his presentation, Metadata 2020, which is open metadata for all research outputs. Some lessons learned so far. We're about midway through our working group goals, and some things that have popped up that I think would be useful for other people to consider when thinking about metadata is there's been a lot of industry conversation about getting buy-in for metadata from internal groups to actually want to make changes to the metadata and enrich it. We found that by identifying our internal needs and balancing that with the external benefits of metadata standards, and also attaching those needs and benefits to existing projects within our company, that it made it easier for people across departments to understand the use and need for richer metadata across the board. Industry initiatives are existing solutions, so I recommend researching and keeping up to date with all of the upcoming industry initiatives. The solutions can be there. It can save you time, it can save you money, and it's very useful when putting together a working group and a project plan. Standardization across journals is very important. It will make any industry initiative implementation much faster and easier. It also enables you to implement services across the journals in a much easier and more efficient way. And then last but not least is timing. It's very easy to underestimate how long it will take you to enrich and review your existing metadata. We recommend that one of the first steps in your working group is to map out your existing metadata within your internal systems, and then also within your external vendors and services. You'll quickly see from that map how complex metadata can be, from different terminology to some metadata coming into one system but not going out to the next. It can be very complex. And then finally, this is an ongoing process. Our working group meets currently once a month to reach our 4 stated goals, but we also plan on meeting quarterly after those goals are met to continually review industry initiatives and the performance of our existing metadata standards. Thank you.